Good afternoon and welcome Steelers Nation as we get set to introduce the Steelers Hall of Honor class of the year 2022. I'm Stan Savran, and just like the Steelers have returned home, if you will, to St. Vincent College, indeed we have as well, as we are streaming live from the Fred Rogers Center on the campus of St. Vincent College. Just to give you an idea of what the process that leads us to today's announcement, the Hall of Honor Selection Committee, of which I'm a member, generally meets in May to begin the process of going through an incredible amount of incredibly talented and deserving individuals. The list is very long, and we also are great to have your input to the list as well. We all make our individual lists. We wait about a month, meet once again, and whittle it down to our final list, and after that, we vote. Now, the discussion is lively. Sometimes it borders on argumentative, but it's always friendly with the idea of coming up with the best possible class that we possibly can. It's almost impossible not to, because we have so many incredibly talented and deserving individuals. And so with that in mind, it's my pleasure, and I'm proud, to introduce to you the Steelers Hall of Honor class of 2022.
Since being founded in 1933, the Pittsburgh Steelers have become one of the National Football League's storied franchises. A tradition built by some of professional football's greatest players. The memorable plays they made,
That's caught out of the air by Franco Harris,
and the championships they won.
and it's a touchdown for Pittsburgh on the ball to Stallworth.
In 2017, to honor and recognize its greatest legends, the Steelers organization created the Hall of Honor. To be a member of the Hall of Honor is to be a permanent part of Steelers history and to belong to a brotherhood that helped establish the team's successes over the last 89 seasons.
One of the great things about this Hall of Honor is that you're going in with guys that you know, guys that you accomplished a lot with, so this is something special.
For players to be considered for induction, they must have played for the team for a minimum of 3 seasons, compiled noteworthy records or achievements during those seasons, and be retired for at least 3 seasons. Coaches and administrators are considered based on significant contributions to the team and community.
To say that you were one of the greatest to ever wear the black and gold, that means a lot to me.
I want to thank all the men in this room that are being inducted with me because they set a standard for every player that came after them. The expectation was that you had to raise your level to meet that standard.
To date, 45 former players, coaches, and contributors have been awarded the steel football that comes with induction into the Hall of Honor. And now, we announce the 4 members of the class of 2022. This year's class includes Ray Matthews. Matthews was a McKeesport High School product drafted by the Steelers in the 7th round of the 1951 draft. Early in his career, Matthews was an explosive all-purpose threat at halfback. He finished top 10 in the NFL in scrimmage yards 3 times over his career in 1952, 1954, and 1955. He also earned Pro Bowl nods after the 1952 and 55 seasons. Matthews made the move to receiver in 1956 and led the team in receiving yards. He finished his Steelers career with 4,976 total yards and 39 touchdowns. Also, to be inducted is a staple along the offensive line of the 1970s. Sam Davis went undrafted in 1967, but worked his way into a starting role during Chuck Noll's 2nd season. From then on, Davis was a mainstay along the offensive front, starting 114 games and was a team captain for the better half of a decade. He helped open holes for fellow Hall of Honor inductees Franco Harris and Rocky Bleier, and kept pass rushers off Terry Bradshaw. He was a 4-time Super Bowl champion, including an impressive performance against Hall of Famer Randy White in Super Bowl 13. In 1982, Davis was voted a member of the Steelers' 50th anniversary team. Next is a player that needs little introduction. Arguably the greatest tight end in Steelers history, Heath Miller's calling card was his quiet demeanor, yet on the field, his play spoke volumes. During his rookie season, Miller was an integral part of the Steelers' Super Bowl 40 run, catching 6 touchdown passes, finishing tied for second in Offensive Rookie of the Year voting.
Always go to Heath Miller. Always go to Heath Miller.
Miller was Ben Roethlisberger's comfort blanket for his entire 11-year career and finished top 5 in receptions, yards, and touchdowns in Steelers history, all of which are the most by a tight end. The 2-time Pro Bowler and Super Bowl champ was a fan favorite, and the chants of Heath still echo through Acrisure Stadium today. The final member of the class was an unparalleled inventor of phrases,
"Play that saxophone, Bobby!"
and towels.
The terrible towel is poised to straight. So are the Steelers.
A proud Pittsburgh native, Myron Cope started his career in journalism, writing for publications such as the Post-Gazette and Sports Illustrated. The award-winning Cope was paired with Jack Fleming in 1970 on the Steelers radio team, a duo that would go on to call immaculate moments.
That's caught out of the air. The ball is pulled in.
And an unprecedented dynasty.
That's 2 sensational catches in this ball game by a leaping Lynn Swan.
In 1975, Cope called upon his fans to bring black and gold towels to support the team during their playoff run. The terrible towel was born.
And the towel is out. Feel the power, Myron. Oh, I can feel that power.
Now, it is the symbol of Steelers Nation, entrenched in fans at birth. His colorful catchphrases and lively persona captured the minds and hearts of fans long after his 35 years in the broadcast booth.
True as it is.
These 4 men have represented what it means to wear the black and gold. 4 men of steel added to the Pittsburgh Steelers Hall of Honor.
That's the one thing about the selection committee. We can't go wrong. We'd like to put in 300 every year if we can. It's my pleasure, and we'll introduce our entire panel, to welcome in the president of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Art Rooney. Art, before we talk about this particular class, what is the process like for you and the process like as we select members each year?
Well, Stan, as you know, it's always a difficult selection process, eliminating guys who deserve to get in. And, you know, as we know, we sit there with a list of sometimes 20 or 25 names, and trying to whittle it down to 4 or 5 people is tough. But again, I think we came up with a great class and excited about it. You know, goes from somebody who played in the 50s all the way to Heath, who played recently, and Myron, who spanned decades. So it's exciting to see these guys go in.
It is. It absolutely is. All deserving, and there's so many more. Be patient. We'll get to them eventually. We certainly hope. I want to introduce the rest of our panel. To my right and camera left, Bob Labriola is the editor of Steelers Digest. And on my far left, next to Mr. Rooney, is Bill Hillgrove, the longtime play-by-play voice of the Steelers on the Steelers radio network, worked for many years with Myron Cope. The first player that we saw on the video was Ray Matthews. And Bob, I want to turn to you. You're the one who nominated him and had a terrific list of his accomplishments and did a great job selling the rest of us on his value and his level of deservedness to be in the Hall of Honor.
Well, thanks, Stan. I mean, you know, as the video explained, Ray Matthews, his career, it was in the 1950s. And at that era, guys had to be very versatile. I mean, you look at Ray Matthews' career stats with the Steelers. He ran the ball. He was a receiver. He returned kickoffs, punts. He even threw 30 or 40 passes in the course of his career, too. So he was a 2-time Pro Bowl guy. He led the Steelers in receiving for 3 successive seasons. But I got to be honest, the thing that put Ray Matthews over the top for me, you know, the Cleveland Browns were admitted to the NFL in 1950. They came over from the All-American Football Conference. So a rivalry was born, but in the early 50s, that was a rivalry in name only. The Browns won the first 8 games, and then some of those scores were just brutal. The Steelers finally broke through and won a game against the Browns in 1954 in Pittsburgh. 55-27 was the score. Ray Matthews scored 4 touchdowns in that game. He got a 7-yard pass, a 78-yard pass, an 8-yard pass, and he had a 3-yard run. So for someone whose mother was born and raised in Cleveland, and Christmas time was kind of brutal sometimes based on the scores of those Browns-Steelers games, I had to champion the guy, the Steelers player, who really was responsible in a lot of ways for that first win over the Browns.
Well, in that regard, you're preaching to the choir, as you well know. Billy, a little-known story about Ray Matthews.
Well, in the late 50s, the Steelers went down to the Western Penitentiary to put on a clinic, and Ray had great speed. And so Jim Finks, the quarterback, is throwing him takeoff pattern after takeoff pattern, and one of the old-time prisoners there turned to another one and said, "If I could run that fast, I wouldn't be here."
Well, this guy didn't have to run too much. The next gentleman is Sam Davis. Sam Davis and John Kolb, who was inducted a couple of years ago, told me that he and Sam played together so long that they would actually just grunt at one another, and they'd know exactly what they were going to do on any one given play in case they had to improvise a little bit. Art, I thought I would turn to you, Sam Davis, one of the maybe lesser-known people from that underrated offensive line from the 1970s.
Well, Sam is one of those people that really came to us, as an undrafted player, and really developed under Chuck Noll into a real foundation of that offensive line. He became a captain of the team and played many, many seasons. And as the video talked about, in Super Bowl 13, he manhandled Randy White. And after the game, I said to Sam, "Well, you really handled him." And he said, "What did you expect?"
And he indeed was a leader on that offensive line. He was one of the most well-respected players on a team obviously was filled with a number of Hall of Famers. Myron Cope, I think we all would have a story. Billy, I'll begin with you because you worked alongside him in the booth for so many years, and the three of us all worked together at WTAE Radio and Channel 4.
Where do I start? How about Super Bowl in Detroit? And Myron had retired, so we're kind of killing time, Tunch and Wolf and myself, before the game in the booth. And finally, one of them said, "Let's call Myron and talk to him." So we did. And Tunch said to him, "Myron, this is my first Super Bowl to broadcast. Do you have any advice?" He said, "Yeah, don't say anything stupid." and then I can go back to the 1995 Super Bowl in Tempe, and Cope and I weren't allowed into the booth until Wednesday of that week. And we walk in the booth, and it's hermetically sealed. It's glass all the way around. And you know, Cope loved that open front so he could sense the crowd and sense the players and everything. And he was a bit upset, so he went to a league functionary and said, "Can you do something about that?" And here I am saying, well, wait a minute. They have 300 Super Bowl priorities, and on their list, that's 301. So we show up at the game in a cab, and we get out of the cab at Sun Devil Stadium, and we hear a voice say, "They'll let anybody in here." And we turn around, and it's Chuck Noll. And of course, Cope went, "Ah, ah, ah, ah." And so we get into the booth, and here they've taken out half the glass. My half, not his. So about 20 minutes before we go on the air, we hear a voice in the back of the booth say, "Mr. Cope, is everything to your liking?" And we turn around, and it's Paul Tagliabue, the commissioner of the National Football League. And I said, "Cope is a heavyweight," and he certainly was.
Even at that size. Art and Bob, we both, I think, all talked about this, that the Steelers fabric runs so deep in the community. And Art, I know, and I've talked about this with your dad and your grandfather, that the relationship between the organization and the fan base, Western Pennsylvania, really worldwide when you stop and think about it, and Myron was a big part of that, galvanizing all those people as sort of a common thread.
No question. Myron, I think, like very few broadcasters in the league, just became part of a Steelers icon. Really, with the towel, invented a symbol that now you see all over the world. Steeler fans all over the world carry it, and he was just an amazing energy bringer to Steelers Nation. Just fun to be around, and the fans just loved him.
I loved how he told the story of how this towel was invented. It was 1975, and the head of the station, WTAE, calls him in and says, because the Steelers were playing a home playoff game in the first round. And they said, hey, Myron, we need a gimmick, something that we can energize the fans. And so Myron sat there and he said, I'm not a gimmick guy. And the guy said, well, your contract's up at the end of this year. Coach said, I'm a gimmick guy. And so that's how they came up. That's how he eventually was motivated to come up with the terrible towel.
Well, it was all motivated. Actually, at that time, the Dolphins had the horrible hanky, whatever it was that they used to wave. And the guy, I work with him also at WTA Radio, so we need something like that. And then Myron came up with the towel idea and the terrible part, of course, and the rest is history. And speaking of history, Larry Richard, who narrated the video that you just watched, talked about Heath Miller arguably being the greatest tight end in Steeler history. I don't know about the arguably part. I think it's pretty well decided at this point. Before we went on the air today, Heath met with Pat Freiermuth, and hopefully he's the next in line. But I think it speaks volumes that overall, and we're going to hear from Heath live here in just a couple of minutes, I think it says volumes that even though he had guys like Jesse James, even if Jesse James would catch a pass, people would scream Heath. Whatever, I could have been Joe Smilbowski. They would have said Heath, and now we got Muth, so we're following along. But he indeed, Bob, was a generational player.
Well, and Heath Miller was voted Steelers MVP in 2012. And, you look back at that team, they had Mike Wallace, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, just on offense. And, Heath Miller led the team in receiving. He was second in receiving yards and tied for first in touchdowns. And so, you look at the talent that was on that team, just offensive firepower. And for Heath Miller to put together that kind of season, I remember Mike Tomlin saying to me afterward that he was particularly gratified by that MVP voting, because he said it really thought that Heath's teammates kind of stepped up and maybe in this case made it more of a lifetime achievement award for all that he did for the team, both on the field, the way he conducted himself, all that kind of stuff.
He caught more passes in his career than he said words. Actually, when you put it all together, you're going to hear from Heath in just a couple of minutes. Art, from your perspective, what a perfect role model, if you will, of how a Pittsburgh Steeler conducts himself.
Yeah, no question, Stan. Heath was, first of all, a great teammate. As Bob just said, his teammates really loved him, and of course the fans showed their love by the Heath call that they still use today. We've turned it into Muth now, so it's a great tradition. But we were really lucky to get him. Heath had a little injury coming out of college, which he lasted to us. I think we drafted him like 30th in the first round, and so we were awfully fortunate to get him, and what a great career, and great to see him coming into the Hall this year.
Absolutely, well-deserved, as they all are. We are going to hear from Heath Miller, but of course practice will begin shortly here on the field at St. Vincent College. We want to invite you to get ready for that, pardon me, with Training Camp Live. Mike Brazuta standing by, Training Camp Live, presented by FedEx. Mike?
Thanks, Dan. It's a pretty exciting day for everybody involved here with Training Camp Live. This is one of those things we haven't done in a while. The Steelers haven't been here at St. Vincent College since 2019, but they're back, we're back, and we're going to be bringing you pre- and post-practice reports every day that they practice here at St. Vincent. We've already seen 3 days on the field, and there's been plenty to chew on. Some fluidity at left guard as Kendrick Green, and Kevin Dotson have been alternating there. Robert Spillane has become a part of what looks like a three-man rotation for the two inside linebacker spots. George Pickens, the rookie receiver from Georgia, has been turning heads. That's not my description. That's the description of Mitch Trubisky, who's been throwing passes to Pickens and has been really impressed. It's off to a good start, and we're excited to bring it to you. I'm going to be working today with Max Starks and Craig Wolfley, and we're really looking forward to turning up the heat here at St. Vincent. 15,000 tickets approximately distributed for today's event. Should be a lot of fun, and we're really looking forward to it. Now let's send it back to you, Stan, at the Fred Rogers Center.
All right, Mike, thank you very much. Training Camp Live coming up shortly on all our various platforms. You're welcome to watch each and every day. Mike Rizzuta, Max Starks, again presented by FedEx. This man generally and genuinely doesn't need any introduction, as if he needed to wear that jersey. When he came in while Mike was talking, the crowd gave the typical reaction. So I'm going to ask you to do it one more time so that everybody can hear what you did just a couple minutes ago. What does that mean to you? I mean, you've been, gone for a while, and as you well know, no matter who the tight end is, they scream Heath. And I wonder, I've been in the press box for all those games, and out-of-town guys are saying, what did they say? What are they talking about? And they don't quite get it. What does that mean to you to still have people shout your name when any tight end, now it's Muth, catches a pass?
Well, it's pretty flattering. I think there's no better fans in the NFL than Steelers Nation. And, my goal as a player was to give my very all for our team, but also the city of Pittsburgh. And, to have that reciprocated back by the fans, I think it's a pretty special thing. And thank you guys very much.
How long ago did you find out that you were going to be inducted into the Hall of Honor? And what does it mean to you, Heath?
Well, I found out a couple days ago. I think maybe like Tuesday, Mr. Rooney called me. But at the time, it's really hard to express how much it really means to me. I think the culture of the Steelers, Coach Tomlin calls it the standard all the time. But if you think about all the great players and the Rooney family and the city of Pittsburgh that make this place so special and have built this awesome legacy, my goal as a player was just to do my best to try to make everyone that came before me proud. And to be mentioned now in the same area code as some of those guys, it's a great honor for sure.
We were talking about how you represent what a Steeler is supposed to be. Do you feel like the Steelers culture fit your personality, or more that your personality fit the Steelers culture?
I think it was just the perfect match. I couldn't have picked a better city or a better team to come to. As I heard Mr. Rooney say during the draft, I didn't work out at all, so that was a little nerve-wracking from a player's perspective. Like, I don't know what's going to happen here, but I landed in the perfect spot, and I'm so grateful to Mr. Rooney and the organization and the city of Pittsburgh to have been able to play here for 11 years.
Well, I think the fans will also, from their perspective, agree that it was a great joy watching you play. Sincere congratulations on being in the Hall of Honor. Well-deserved, well-earned.
Thank you very much.
Now, we want to mention to you that the official Hall of Honor presentation will come up this November 13th. The New Orleans Saints will be in town. It's week 10 of the NFL season, and the 4 inductees will be inducted into the Hall of Honor on that Sunday, November 13th, at halftime at Acrisure Stadium. I want to make sure I got the stadium name right. I'm prone to fall back into old habits, just like everybody else. I'm sure we'll all endure. Once again, we invite you to watch Training Camp Live coming up in just a couple of minutes with Mike Rizzuta and Max Starks. It's presented by FedEx. Again, you're welcome to check all of our platforms, Steelers Nation Radio, on all the activities during training camp and, of course, throughout the regular season. Thanks to our fans here in attendance. Thanks to you so much for watching as we have now introduced the class of 2022. Thank you. Have a great afternoon.